Story 1. Am I the asshole for not giving my sister my wife's clothes? My wife was a corporate lawyer and mediator, always dressed impeccably for work. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and for 2 agonizing years, we battled the disease. The last 6 months of her life were pure torment. During that time, my sister Sarah did absolutely nothing to support us. My wife never liked her, and I can't stand her either. She's selfish beyond belief. At my wife's wake, Sarah dared to ask about my wife's clothes, wanting to keep a few pieces to remember her by. I ignored her, not wanting to deal with her nonsense. Now, 6 months have passed since my wife's death. I attended my mom's birthday, though I still don't feel ready to be around people. Out of nowhere, Sarah brought up my wife's clothes again. I told her that my wife had wanted them donated to a women's shelter, a place she had often supported. The clothes would help women in need with their court cases, appointments, and job interviews. Sarah then had the nerve to say my wife was selfish even in death. When I asked her what she meant, she went off about how my wife always thought she was better than her and how it was unfair that the clothes were going to charity instead of family. I snapped and told Sarah I'd rather burn my wife's clothes than see her wearing them. She started crying, and my mom came over to find out what was happening. My mom then told me to go easy on Sarah because she was struggling with my wife's death. The absurdity of that statement made me grab my gift and leave. My mom acted like I ruined her birthday by being melodramatic, but I can't believe they're trying to guilt me over clothes they have no right to. Story 2. Am I the asshole for naming my son the name I had always planned even after my brother and sister-in-law stole the name? My brother and his wife have every right to choose whatever name they want for their child. I don't own my name, so I can't dictate what my brother should name his kid. That being said, my husband has a traditional family name that I adore. Since we started dating and discussing our future, we agreed that our son would carry that name, Oisin. My husband is genuinely Irish, born in Galway, not just descended from someone who immigrated in the 1800s. Neither my family nor my sister-in-law has any real connection to Ireland. When she got pregnant around the same time I did, and her son was born 2 months before ours, they named their child Oisin Miguel. I didn't get upset or make a fuss. When our son was born, we named him Oisin Daniel, just as I had told her we planned to. Now she's flipped out about 2 cousins having the same name, which I find ridiculous. Our family is Hispanic, and many of our cousins share names like Carlos or Camilla. She's insisting we call him by his middle name or even change it. I told her to back off. My mom is trying to stay neutral, though she was surprised my brother chose an Irish name knowing it was the one I had planned to use. She expected him to name his son after our late father. Anyway, my husband's family finds the whole situation hilarious. My family thinks my sister-in-law is being unreasonable, and she thinks I'm the one at fault for copying her. Whatever. I'm posting this here and sending her the link so she can see what others think. Story 3. My boyfriend passed away unexpectedly 2 months ago, and in his will, he left everything to my son and me. His estate includes his house, 5 cars, and 2 motorcycles. I have the only copy of the will, which has been verified as legal and valid by a court clerk. He didn't have a relationship with his family due to an abusive childhood, but now his parents are acting like they're entitled to everything. They don't believe the will exists and have already gone to his house, taking all the vehicles to store at their place. They've also taken his laptop and are using his Facebook profile to list and sell off smaller items like furniture. The probate hearing is scheduled for August 26, and I was under the impression that it's illegal to touch or remove anything from the estate until someone is officially assigned to inherit it. What legal steps can I take to get the vehicles back and recover anything they've already sold? Story 4. My son and his friend were a couple. How do I let them know it's okay? Hello Reddit. Please bear with me as I navigate the formatting. I'm an older guy, well past 40, so I'm not exactly a pro at this internet stuff. My son is 20 years old, and he's my pride and joy. There's nothing he could ever do to make me love him any less. Unfortunately, I wasn't very involved in the first half of his life. His mother and I split when he was just a few months old, and at the time, I was battling a heroin addiction. I wasn't the father I should have been and only saw him 2 or 3 times a year until he was 12. I won't go into details because that's his story to tell, but when he was 12, he told me about the horrible mistreatment he suffered at the hands of his mother and her boyfriend. Despite not being a great dad at the time, I couldn't stand the thought of my boy suffering, so I got clean and fought for full custody. I've been a single and sober father ever since, and he has little to no contact with his mother. He's everything a man could want his son to be: kind, loyal, brave, and generous. Despite the hardships he endured, he remained positive and sunny. I don't know how I got so lucky to watch him grow from a sweet boy into the greatest man I've ever known. I'm incredibly proud of him. When he turned 18, he got accepted into a top-ranking university across the country. I was sad to see him go but thrilled that he was starting a new chapter in his life. He visits home every other month, and on the months he doesn't come home, I visit him. He's thriving at uni, with lots of friends and a seemingly happy life. In his second year, he moved off campus to live with his friend. I've suspected since his early teens that my son might be gay, and I'm now pretty sure that this friend is his boyfriend. With the COVID-19 situation, my son decided to come home and quarantine with me instead of staying at his university flat. His friend, however, would have been left alone, as he's Canadian and doesn't have the best relationship with his family. My son asked if it would be okay for his friend to come along, and I happily agreed. They've been staying with me for about 6 weeks now. They think they're being subtle, but I've noticed a few things. The friend has accidentally called my son babe and sweetie in front of me a couple of times, which I pretended not to notice to spare them any embarrassment. Sometimes, when we're watching a movie with the lights off, I'll see my son with his arm around the friend. One day, I walked into the lounge and I'm pretty sure they'd just been kissing, though I didn't catch them in the act. The most solid evidence came a few mornings ago when I got up early for my morning run. My son was supposedly sleeping in his childhood room, and his friend was in the guest room. But when I cracked my son's door open, I saw them both asleep, snuggled up together in his bed. That confirmed it for me. I haven't mentioned any of this to them yet, but I'm wondering how to let my son and his boyfriend know that I'm okay with their relationship. I want them to feel comfortable in my home and know that I support them. Should I bring it up, or should I wait for them to tell me in their own time? I don't want to force them out of the closet, but I also don't want them to feel like they have to hide in my house. What's the best way to handle this? TLDR, my son and his friend are staying with me during quarantine. It's clear they're a couple, and I want to let them know it's okay to be themselves in my house. How should I approach this? Update. My son and his friend were a couple. How do I let them know it's okay? Now, I know you're all eager to hear what happened, so I'll get to it. My son was busy most of the day with assignments for both his freelancing job and uni work, so I waited until after dinner to talk. His friend went to take a bath while my son and I watched TV. I decided to have the conversation face to face and told him, "Son, I love you very much. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to, but I want you and friend to feel comfortable being yourselves in my house. You never need to hide anything from me, alright?" Well, as many of you predicted, my son burst out laughing and said, "Oh thank God, I thought you'd figured it out but didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to make you feel weird." Turns out we'd both been tiptoeing around the topic because neither of us wanted to make the other uncomfortable. We had a nice chat, and he confirmed that they've been together since their first year of uni, which is why they moved in together in their second year. However, I'm not as intuitive as I thought because one of his friends in secondary school was his boyfriend for a year, and I had no clue. After his bath, my son's boyfriend joined us, and we all had another chat. Sadly, many of you were right about the reason his boyfriend doesn't have a good relationship with his parents. They disowned him after he came out a few years ago. I made sure he knew that he was now part of our family. Sorry if this isn't as thrilling or groundbreaking as some of you might have hoped. But I'm glad my boy no longer feels like he has to keep this from me, and I'm incredibly happy that he's with someone who makes him happy. Thank you all again for your help. Story 5. I just found out why my wedding started late and I love my husband more because of it. My husband, John, Bucky, 26M, and I, 24F, just got back from our week-long honeymoon 2 weeks ago. We affectionately call my husband, Bucky, because he resembles the character from the MCU movies, though I think my Bucky is even more delicious. Yesterday was the first time we had dinner with his family since the wedding. My sister-in-law, 20F, who is my favorite person besides my husband, and was my maid of honor, took me aside to share something that happened behind the scenes at our wedding. Here's a bit of background. My mother-in-law, 48F, has never liked me, and she hasn't hidden that from me, though she did keep it from her son. This started from the moment we began dating. She would be all smiles in front of Bucky but would make nasty comments the second he was out of sight. At first, I kept it to myself, hoping she would warm up to me over time. But it never stopped. Eventually, I had enough and started telling Bucky about it. Bucky confronted his mother, but she claimed I was just misunderstanding her. While Bucky believed me, he also believed his mother's claims that she didn't mean any harm. Her behavior continued, but she became more subtle, making comments that could be interpreted in different ways. It was frustrating, and we had arguments over it. I don't blame Bucky, he was stuck between believing me and not wanting to think the worst of his mother. When Bucky proposed, I hoped that would be the end of it, but she only got sneakier. There were times I almost called off the wedding because I couldn't handle it anymore. Somehow, we pushed through and started planning the wedding. My sister-in-law was a huge help during the wedding planning, and because my mother-in-law had minimal involvement, everything turned out perfectly. From my perspective, everything went smoothly on the wedding day, though we did start a bit later. Bucky told me something important came up last minute, and I assumed it was work-related, so I didn't press for details. But now, my sister-in-law has filled me in on what happened. I was in the bridal suite, so I didn't see or hear any of this. My mother-in-law showed up at the venue wearing a white dress. When Bucky found out, he asked my sister-in-law to bring her to his ready room, along with his other siblings and father. When my mother-in-law walked in and tried to hug him, Bucky stopped her. He calmly but firmly asked why she was wearing white at his wedding. When she brushed it off, he pressed further, asking why she was trying to hurt his soon-to-be wife and ruin his wedding day. I think framing it as his wedding day, rather than just mine, got through to her. He reminded her that this day was as much his as it was mine. She continued to dismiss his concerns, saying it was just a dress. That's when Bucky lost it. He started yelling at his mother, telling her that he now realized I wasn't misunderstanding her, she was intentionally being hurtful to me. He admitted that he had been defending her to me all this time, but now it was clear that I was the one who needed defending. He accused her of trying to sabotage our relationship. When my father-in-law tried to intervene, Bucky shut him down, telling him he didn't want to hear it because they had enabled her behavior. Bucky then laid down the law. Because you're my mother, I'm willing to postpone the wedding by half an hour to give you a chance to change. I don't care if you go home, to a store, or wherever. Just leave now and only come back when you've changed. If you refuse, you will never see me, my wife, or our future children ever again. Do I make myself clear? The wedding was perfect, and my mother-in-law returned wearing a blue dress. I don't know how to thank my husband enough for standing up for me like that. His birthday is in 3 months, and I'm already planning something extra special for him. Update 1. I just found out why my wedding started late and I love my husband more because of it. It's been 2 months since my last post, and I didn't expect to be writing an update, but here we are. First off, I want to thank everyone for their responses. I saw a lot of suggestions about thanking my husband through sexual favors, and while I appreciate the humor, let me clarify, we're newlyweds. What do you think we're already doing? We're enjoying that part of our relationship, but sex isn't a reward, it's part of the intimate connection we share. As for Bucky's birthday, I've got something special planned. We're heading to Las Vegas for the weekend, and I've already made reservations at Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. Bucky knows I've got plans for us, but he has no idea what they are yet. I'm excited to surprise him. Now, onto the update. We've decided to go in contact with his mother, and we're in limited contact with his father. Sharon, my sister-in-law, has even moved out of their parents' house. She's currently staying with a friend, about a 20-minute walk from us. Here's why everything escalated. After the wedding, Pamela, my mother-in-law, was cordial. She wasn't overly nice, but she also wasn't mean. That changed 3 weeks ago. We were invited to a family get-together, and everyone was asked to bring something. I made a rum cake, a South American recipe my college roommate taught me. The cake, called viado, if I'm spelling that right, takes hours to make. Bucky spent the whole time with me in the kitchen, talking, pouring me wine, and taste testing the rum. He saw firsthand how much effort went into that cake. At the get-together, everything was going fine until Bucky mentioned that he had been offered a job that would require us to move out of state. We hadn't made a decision yet, as we were still figuring out what it would mean for my work. Could I transfer, work remotely, or would I need to find a new job? When Pamela heard this, she lost it. She threw a full-on tantrum, accusing me of taking her only baby boy away. She started yelling at me, and I was too shocked to react. Bucky tried to calm her down, but she wasn't having it. In the middle of her tantrum, she walked over to the table, grabbed my cake, and threw it on the ground. I don't know what happened after that. I just remember falling to my knees, repeating, "It's just a cake, it's just a cake," over and over. But it wasn't just a cake, it was the time, effort, and love I had put into making it. I had called my old roommate for a refresher on the recipe, found a specialty shop for the specific sugar-based rum, and spent hours in the kitchen baking it. And she just threw it on the floor. I could hear my husband yelling, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. I've never heard him so angry. After a while, Bucky came over, helped me up, and we left. On the way home, he kept reassuring me that everything would be okay and that we were never going back there again. Once we calmed down at home, we talked it over. I didn't even have to suggest going no contact. Bucky had already told his mother that we were done and that we would only resume contact if I changed my mind. We took out our phones and blocked Pamela. Bucky then called his father, put him on speaker, and told him that Pamela was not welcome in our home and that we were going no contact, possibly permanently. Pamela tried to say something, but Bucky hung up. We haven't made a final decision on the job offer, but this situation has given us one more reason to consider accepting it and moving away. Update 2. I just found out why my wedding started late and I love my husband more because of it. The Pamela saga has come to a close, but it's not the ending any of us anticipated or desired. Before any wild thoughts cross your mind, no, Bucky and I are not divorcing. Our love is strong, our marriage is solid, and there's no reason for us to part ways. Let's take a step back to cover what's happened in the past few months. Going no contact might sound simple in theory, but it's far from easy, especially when the other person refuses to respect those boundaries. Pamela, instead of accepting our decision, decided to ramp up her efforts to reconnect with Bucky. She was relentless, believing that if she pushed hard enough, Bucky would eventually see things her way. Despite our no-contact stance, Pamela was determined to be in full contact mode, pun intended. She got herself a new number and began bombarding Bucky with texts. Since his phone is on silent during work meetings, he didn't notice until later. By the time he checked, there were already 20 messages waiting for him. The text started with apologies, claiming she was sorry for her actions but insisting that we were overreacting. She stressed that we're family and that families work things out. But as Bucky remained silent, her tone shifted, becoming angrier and more desperate. When he blocked that number, she simply got a new one. After a week of this, Bucky had had enough and called his father, asking him to put Pamela on speaker so I could hear the conversation. During the call, Bucky calmly explained to his mother that we were going no contact because of her behavior towards me, his wife, and that her current actions were only making things worse. Pamela asked how long this would last, and Bucky told her it would be up to me to decide when contact could resume. And that's when Pamela sealed her fate. She lashed out, saying that slur for black people, slur for Chinese people will never be fair. For context, I'm mixed African American and Chinese. I gasped audibly when she said that. Pamela must have heard it because she immediately asked if I was there. Bucky looked at me, and I knew what he was thinking. I nodded in agreement. We had just made our final decision. Without addressing her question, Bucky simply said, "We've decided. I'm taking the job offer, and we're moving far away from you." With that, he hung up the phone. I don't believe Pamela was inherently racist, but in the heat of the moment, she made a racist remark that was enough to push us over the edge. The next few weeks flew by. Bucky confirmed that he would accept the new job offer and resigned from his old position. I arranged to work remotely, and in a few months, my workplace will open a satellite office in our new city, where I'm already on the transfer list. In just a month, we moved to our new home. For 2 months, we heard nothing from Pamela. Then, 2 weeks ago, we got a call from my father-in-law. Pamela had been involved in a fatal car accident. The investigation is still ongoing, so all we know is that it was a multi-car pileup on the highway, and several people, including Pamela, lost their lives. We've just returned from her funeral. Even though we were in contact, she was still Bucky's mother. This isn't the outcome any of us wanted. We had hoped that someday we might reconcile, but life had other plans. On a lighter note, Bucky's birthday was fantastic. As a foodie, he was in heaven at Hell's Kitchen. We even caught a glimpse of Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen. We didn't get the chance to speak with him, but seeing him from a distance was a treat in itself. Story 6. I shit my pants during a job interview last week. It sounds like a story straight out of a sitcom, but sometimes reality has a way of surprising us in the most unexpected ways. Just before the interview, I felt the urgent call of nature but thought I could hold out for just 10 more minutes. Big mistake. I had a severe stomach issue that hit me at the worst possible moment, right before the interview. After a hasty cleanup, I joined the call, but the aftermath of my unfortunate situation was far from over. As I sat there trying to maintain my composure, my stomach continued to protest loudly, and I was sweating bullets from the discomfort. I silently begged for the interview to end quickly, but the COO was thorough and kept asking questions. The pressure kept building, and despite my best efforts, I ended up soiling myself mid-interview. You'd think that would be the end of my chances, but incredibly, the COO was impressed with my performance and offered me the job, at triple my previous salary, with fantastic benefits to boot. At that moment, I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or maybe both. After the call, I had to do some damage control, literally, including replacing my chair. But the outcome, unbelievable. It's a story that's bound to be retold for years, one of those, you won't believe this happened, moments that ended in the most unexpected, incredible way. Story 7. GF26F had an affair with her boss but wants to stay together. I'm 28 and have been with my girlfriend, who's 26, for 3 years, and we've lived together almost the entire time. 2 months ago, she got a job offer that would require us to move further from my job and my brother. I asked her not to take the job, but she thought it would benefit her career, so I agreed to move with her. She told her current job she was leaving, and during that week, she came to me and said she wasn't sure if our relationship would work because she felt unsupported. She said she was unhappy and that I didn't make her feel special. This news was a shock since I had always imagined a future with her. The thought of losing her over what seemed like a small issue pushed me to act. I immediately booked a luxurious hotel room for us and took her out to show my love. She agreed we could take it one day at a time, so I did everything I could to make her believe in us again. I woke up early to make breakfast, sent her affectionate messages, and tried to make her feel cherished. Later that week, I overheard her laughing on the phone with her boss, which made me uneasy. I had always felt uncomfortable with how unprofessional she seemed with him, especially since they'd hang out outside work. That night, while she was asleep, I checked her phone, not expecting to find anything, but just to be sure. The texts between her and her boss were very suggestive. I confronted her, and she admitted he had confessed his feelings for her and that she might feel the same. She said they had kissed once when she told him she was leaving the company, but nothing else happened. She also told me he had tried to persuade her to leave me. We talked all night, and I told her I could move on if she recommitted to our relationship and cut off all contact with him. The next day was her last day at her old job, and she told me she had talked to him and blocked him. The next 6 weeks were tough, but I started to feel better. However, I found a few inconsistencies in her story that troubled me. I wanted to move forward, get engaged, and recommit, but I needed to know the full truth. I contacted her boss, who revealed that they had kissed 3 times, not just once, and the last kiss was when she told him she was trying to reconcile with me. He also mentioned they talked a little the week after she said she had blocked him and promised me she wouldn't lie again. Now, I'm unsure what to do. I kicked her out of our apartment and said we couldn't live together anymore, but she kept telling me she'd do anything to fix things. I told her I needed 2 weeks before we could talk, but I'm unsure if I can ever move past this. Did she choose him over me? Was I just a backup? What if I had never found out? I don't know if I should move on or try to make it work. I still love her, and we have so much history. We've taken family vacations, and I had planned to propose soon. I'm so confused and feel alone. Are all women like this? Is there any chance to rebuild trust? Story point 8. My girlfriend told me she was pregnant, so I arranged to move all her stuff out behind her back. If you only read the title, I might seem like the bad guy, but that's not the case. I've known since my teens that I didn't want children. My parents were fine with this decision, though they did say I might change my mind. Since I have siblings, they'll still get grandchildren. When I was 20, I had a vasectomy. When I was 22, I met my girlfriend. I was clear about wanting to stay child-free from the start. I mentioned my vasectomy, but it was during a night out, so I'm not sure if she remembers. We had been dating for a year and a half when she moved in with me. I'm now 25. 2 weeks ago, I came home from work, and my girlfriend was in the living room with a smile, showing me a positive pregnancy test. I thought it was a joke, so I played along. When it became clear it wasn't a prank, I knew what had happened but kept pretending. That night, I stayed up late sending emails. I took a week off work and told my best friends the whole story, asking them to act like they knew nothing and to be ready. The next morning, I went to work as usual. But instead, Carl, one of my friends, was waiting for me with a cap and hoodie. For the entire week, we followed Katie, and on the 3rd day, she met her affair partner. We trailed them to a motel, and then Carl followed him to his home, discovering he was married with children. We came up with a plan. I convinced Katie to visit her parents to share the good news last Saturday. While she was there, I gave my friends the keys to my home. At Katie's parents' house, we had lunch with her family, and then Katie shared her news. Everyone was thrilled. Afterward, I took a call from my friends telling me they were ready. I asked if I could make an announcement. I pulled Katie aside in front of everyone, probably making them think I was going to propose. Instead, I recounted how we met, and how much she meant to me, and ended with, "And that's why it hurt so much when you cheated on me and got pregnant by someone else." The room went silent. Katie looked stunned. She started saying it was a joke, but I told her it wasn't. I knew she had cheated because I had a vasectomy 5 years ago and got regular checkups. If she's pregnant, she must have been unfaithful. At that moment, her phone rang. I told her to answer it. It was probably App's full name, the real father of her baby. He might want to talk about her moving in. Not sure how his wife and kids will feel about that. What happened was that my friends had packed up Katie's belongings into a U-Haul and delivered them to the affair partner's house. When they arrived, they handed him and his wife a folder with photos of him and Katie. Carl said, "Since Op is kicking her out, she needs somewhere to stay. We thought you'd take her in since she's pregnant with your child." The affair partner yelled at Katie, saying she ruined his life and he never wanted to see her again. After hearing him yell, I said, "So, his wife doesn't want his mistress and their baby living there. Looks like you'll be staying with your parents." With that, I left, leaving Katie crying and her family confused and angry. My friend brought the U-Haul with her things to her parents' house after the affair partner refused to accept it. I returned home to find my sister waiting for me. She knew everything. This wasn't part of my plan, but Carl knows me well. I broke down in my sister's arms. She stayed with me for the weekend, helping me grieve and process the betrayal. My girlfriend told me she was pregnant, so I arranged to move all her stuff out behind her back. Small update. It's been a week since I left Katie at her parents' house. My friends cleaned out my place and took all of Katie's things, but since I didn't label everything, they accidentally took some of my stuff too. So, I called her sister to arrange a meeting to exchange our belongings. The sister agreed, but only if I would sit down with Katie and hear her out. I would have left everything there, but the tablet had important work files, so I agreed to meet. I made it clear that there was no chance of reconciliation. Katie looked like a shadow of her former self. She started with small talk, but I quickly told her I wasn't there for that. She wanted to apologize. I nearly lost my temper, wanting to yell at her for ruining our relationship. I wanted to scream that a simple apology couldn't fix the betrayal. But I didn't yell. I stayed silent. I didn't accept or reject her apology, I simply said nothing. She asked why I didn't ask her why she did it. I told her no explanation could justify her actions, so it didn't matter what excuse she gave. She said she thought the baby was mine because we weren't using protection despite my vasectomy and yearly checkups, and hoped I'd change my mind about being child-free when I saw she was pregnant. I told her that was a foolish assumption and that she didn't use protection with her affair partner. She complained that it was unfair for me to expose the affair to her family. I responded, "You're right, I didn't have to. But I chose to, just like you chose to cheat on me, and just like AP chose to cheat on his wife. These are the consequences of those choices." She asked if there was still a chance she would abort the baby. I told her that whether she kept or aborted the baby wouldn't change her betrayal. She could do what she wanted, but we weren't getting back together. I was done listening. She hadn't told me anything new. So, I gathered my things and was about to leave when she said, "I love you." My response was, "No, you don't. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed and hurt me. I loved you, but you destroyed that too." With that, I walked out, hearing her sobbing behind me. I've also learned that the affair partner is being kicked out of his house. He and his wife are divorcing, and he ends things with Katie, blaming her for ruining his life. I don't know what Katie will do with the baby, but it's no longer my concern. Story 9. I thought she took me to the restroom to have sex. I was wrong. In college, I met a girl at a house party. We drank, talked, and drank some more. We started kissing, really getting into it. She asked me to join her in the restroom. Naturally, I agreed. She took my hand, led me away, and we went into the bathroom. As soon as we were inside, she locked the door behind us. I thought things were about to get more intimate. But instead, she told me to wait, unzipped her pants, and sat down on the toilet. I assumed she needed to pee. Then, I heard a grunt, a fart, and a plop. I was stunned. I quickly unlocked the door and ran out. I never saw her again. Story 10. I 32M, I'm divorcing my wife 33F after finding out that my son 5M is not mine. A couple of weeks ago, I discovered that my wife had cheated on me 6 years ago. I found out when her sister, during a visit to check on her new baby, revealed that my wife had confessed to her that she had slept with her best friend while drunk. According to her sister, my wife was very sorry about it. At the time, I was with my son. As soon as I left her sister's house, I went to get a paternity test, fearing the worst. A week later, my fears were confirmed, the boy was not mine. With this proof, I confronted my wife that night while the child was asleep. She asked who told me, and I simply said it was none of her business, though it wouldn't take long for her to figure out it was her sister. I asked for a divorce, which is now in progress. She was devastated, and repeatedly swore that nothing had happened with anyone else since then, claiming she had been faithful. I resisted the urge to insult her to keep things smooth for the divorce, though I didn't believe her. She blamed alcohol rather than taking full responsibility. During our discussions, she threatened to seek full custody of the child. Annoyed, I agreed, saying I wanted nothing to do with the child and that she could keep him while I would keep our 2 dogs, whom we adopted as puppies and are now 8 years old. She tried to convince me to stay involved with the child, insisting I was his father. I lost my temper and yelled at her to take her, bastard, with her. Since then, she has moved to her parents' house with the child. She hasn't called me since, leaving with everything and the half-asleep kid. This was the first time I yelled at her, and I'm sure it impacted her. I've spoken with my parents, and my dad said I did the right thing, not raising a child who isn't mine. I agree with him, but the pain is still there. My younger brother suggested I write here to distract myself. I'm seeing a therapist 3 times a week who told me that leaving behind what causes me pain is the first step. It just hurts to know that my family no longer exists. As for why my sister-in-law told me everything, she said she felt guilty seeing me happy with my son, knowing he might not be mine. Her guilt fully broke down during our visit, but I'm unsure of how true that is. Right now, I feel a lot of hatred for my wife and mixed feelings of pain and resentment toward the child. It's just a matter of time to move forward. I hope the divorce process goes smoothly. We have separate finances and properties. If she seeks child support, I have proof that the child isn't mine, which my lawyer says is sufficient to counter any legal claims. My therapist also advised me not to see either of them, focusing on my healing first. The child is no longer my concern, and accepting that sooner will be better. Sorry for any mistakes, English isn't my first language. Story 11. Am I the asshole for abandoning my daughter on vacation? My wife and I had always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation, just the 2 of us, reliving the romance of our early years. We had meticulously planned this trip for years and were incredibly excited. Then our adult daughter, Jane, and her family found out about our plans. Jane and her husband, along with their 2 kids 9F, 5M, decided to join us. I had insisted that this trip was meant solely for us, which upset Jane. However, my wife, who struggles to refuse Jane, agreed to let them come along to avoid hurting her feelings. Although I wasn't thrilled, I wanted to make my family happy. Given that Jane's family was coming, we changed our original destination to a family-friendly all-inclusive resort and paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to cover their airfare. As the vacation approached, I began to reconsider. Our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I wanted it to be exactly as we had originally planned. My wife and I might not get another chance like this for a long time, and it was something we had always dreamed of. Without discussing it with anyone, I switched our tickets last minute to the romantic destination we had originally chosen. I didn't inform Jane or her husband until the day before our departure, which was the day before their flight. It was a difficult decision, and I feel guilty about it. But I wanted our 40th anniversary to be the special, intimate celebration we had always envisioned. We called Jane after we landed, and she was extremely upset. She thought we were going to help look after the grandkids so she and her husband could enjoy some alone time. When I told her we wouldn't be there, she was furious. I hung up when my son-in-law started shouting, and my wife and I enjoyed the rest of our trip. Jane's family came back the same day we did but haven't responded to our texts. Jane is ignoring me. My wife preferred our romantic trip over the family one but feels bad about Jane being angry and wants me to apologize. I'm unsure if I should apologize, considering Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I feel I should maintain the peace. Am I the asshole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? Story 12. My girlfriend told me she was with a friend, but that friend was with me picking out an engagement ring. How do I confront my girlfriend about her lie? God, this is a doozy. I swear my life feels like a movie right now. Sorry for the weird formatting, I'm on mobile, and this is my first time posting on a sub like this. I, 28M, am planning to propose to my girlfriend of 3 years, 26F. Now, I'm not great at picking out jewelry. I'm the type of guy who doesn't see a problem with heart-shaped jewelry. Seriously, why is it considered so ugly? So, whenever I want to buy something for my girl, I usually ask one of our mutual friends for help. My girlfriend's best friends are also friends with me, and we all get along well, so consulting them for jewelry advice is something I'm used to. When it came time to choose a ring, I turned to my girlfriend's best friend, Justine, fake name. Justine and I are close, and she knows my girlfriend better than anyone, including me. So, when my girlfriend went out to visit her sister and baby nephew, I invited Justine over to help pick out a ring. Justine and I looked through some catalogs but decided it would be better to visit a jewelry store. However, I didn't know when my girlfriend would be home, so Justine and I came up with a clever text to find out how much time we had. I asked her when she'd be home, as I was ordering takeout and wanted to know when to tell them to have the food ready. She replied that it would be a few hours and that she was meeting up with Justine for shopping. This surprised me because Justine was with me at my house. I showed Justine the text, and she was just as confused as I was. It's not unusual for my girlfriend to make spontaneous plans, like shopping or lunch, so normally I would have believed the text. But this seemed like a lie. When she came home, she acted completely normal. I played along, but it's been really hard to act like everything's fine. We got takeout, ate together, and cuddled on the couch afterward. She noticed something was off but couldn't figure out what. Looking at her breaks my heart. I don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have always had complete trust in each other and shared everything, so this lie is eating me up. I want to ask her about it, but if I tell her I knew she was lying, I'd have to explain why, and I don't want to do that. What should I do? This won't stop gnawing at me. Please help. Edit. Sorry for the delay in responses. It's been a hectic day with a lot of comments. Thanks to everyone who has commented so far, I appreciate them all. Edit number 2. Sorry again for the delay. It's been a crazy day as my parents are moving, and I've been helping them. I've never had so many comments on a post before. I'm planning to talk to my girlfriend tonight once things settle down, and I'll update you tomorrow. Hey guys. Oh my god, where do I start? My last post got way more attention than I ever imagined. It was a bit overwhelming. Seriously, the number of people asking for an update was a bit dehumanizing, like I was a story, rather than a person going through something. But I understand, haha. Thank you so much for all the support and wonderful comments. I received great advice that helped me address the issue directly. I also got a lot of kind comments and messages, which was awesome. I also saw how toxic this sub can be. Many comments said things like, she's cheating, it's over, or, don't even confront her, just leave. Advice like that can ruin relationships that just need a bit of work. Thank you to those who told me to hit my girlfriend, called me an embarrassment to my gender, and suggested I encourage an affair for future experiences. You gave me a good laugh. On to the update. I decided to confront my girlfriend. I considered using some of the lies suggested, but they didn't make sense. To say I ran into Justine somewhere didn't work because I told my girl I had to stay home and do stuff around the house, which is why I couldn't go with her to see my sil. Saying Justine was helping me pick out jewelry didn't make sense either, since she came to our house to help with something as significant as an engagement ring. If I wanted just any piece of jewelry, I would have asked her friends for suggestions or texted them pictures. None of the excuses made sense. So, I decided to be honest. I told her that since we'd been talking about marriage and she probably knew a proposal was coming soon, I invited Justine over to help me find the perfect ring. I asked her what was going on. She immediately started grinning and probing me about the proposal and the ring. Once we got back to the topic of where she was, she admitted what she was doing. No, she wasn't cheating, and no, she wasn't picking out a ring for me. The number of times people commented on that was crazy. So, here's the scoop. I'm a snake person. I grew up with snakes and always wanted one, but my girlfriend has been uneasy about living with a snake. Buying and raising a snake is quite different from getting a dog or cat, so you can imagine my surprise when my girlfriend showed me a picture of her holding the cutest Kenyan sand boa I have ever seen. Needless to say, my girlfriend was planning to surprise me with a snake. We're picking her up next week, let me know if you want a pet tax, she's so cute. I didn't expect this, and I feel bad for ruining the surprise, but oh well. Life is good. Sorry if this isn't the ending you wanted or expected, just a snake haha. Thanks for reading. TLDR, Snake. Edit number 2. Did you guys award me 130 sneak awards? I love Reddit. Hey there, amazing people. Get ready to smash that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to turn on notifications. Thank you so much for tuning in, I can't wait to catch you in the next video. Stay awesome.